Thank you, Chairman Day, and good morning. Will the Committee on Finance please come to order? There are 4 requests for public comment. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the board. Please come up to the microphone as I call your name. Sharon Elise. Do not see anyone moving to the microphone, so I will assume that Sharon Elise is not present. Moving then to Jonathan Karp. Apparently, I'm not very good at engaging individuals. We'll try Tessie Reese now. Thank you, Tessie.
Tessie declines, thank you.
Oh, jeez.
Good, you're up to 3.
Good, all right. Edgman Hakobian.
Thank you, sir. You are really good with engaging with the public. So I want to talk about the concept of project management today, especially Six Sigma. And the reason I want to bring this up, I feel like we talked about financial aid and the problems, and I feel like these disciplines can address and fix that. What a Six Sigma is when you are successful 99.9966% of the time when you are providing a service. The construction industry, software engineering companies, medicine, they're all using these type of disciplines to make sure the outcome is always positive. And why not apply this to our financial aid system? So from what I realized, the way CSU operates is we spend a lot of time in developing vision and mission statement. And then from then on, there's kind of not a structure to follow up. But that's not how it is in like the Department of Defense, again, construction, software engineering companies. What they do next is they come up with a business case and they break it down to projects, and the projects, they all have defined schedule, scope, and funding. And that's how they track all these processes and developments. And that's how these industries have been really successful in the past couple of years. And they've been very innovative with their products. So I recommend that we at least look into this disciplines and try to hire more project management, and with the certified Six Sigma Black certification, and put them on these tasks. Also, I want to add that Amazon Web Services, and I'm not affiliated with any of the companies that I'm mentioning, Amazon Web Services, it's extremely cheap for database management, and it's very accessible. And their .gov, I understand security and the information of our students is very important, but their .gov services provide services to the DoD, NSA, and it goes all the way to ITAR compliance, which is an international certification for protecting sensitive material. So I would suggest that we go down that path. And also Deloitte provides robotic task automation services. Why not hire these consultants and these companies and use this talent to fix the problem that we have in the CSU? Thanks.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Hakobian. Any of the other prior speakers present now? Seeing none. It is now time for the committee to consider today's consent agenda. Does any committee member wish to remove any item from the consent agenda for further discussion? All right, hearing no request, are there any objections to the approval of the consent agenda? Seeing none, the consent agenda is approved. The committee has only one item on today's discussion agenda. Item 4 is an information item on CSU's Operational Effectiveness Initiative, and the item will be presented by Steve Relia, Executive Vice Chancellor and Chief Financial Officer, Aaron Kasuba, Executive Director and Chief Procurement Officer, and Adela De La Torre, President of San Diego State University. Steve, would you please begin?
Thank you, Chair Nylon. Now, this presentation outlines initiatives that are centered on our stewardship of the resources that the university manages. Our commitment to being good stewards requires that the 23 campuses and the system office continuously look for operational effectiveness opportunities in the way we optimize how we operate. We strive to use our resources strategically and wisely in order to ultimately deliver a quality educational experience to our students. I will now turn the presentation over to Arun Kasuba, who's our Executive Director of Strategic Sourcing and our Chief Procurement Officer, to discuss the CSU effectiveness initiatives. Arun?
Thank you, Executive Vice Chancellor Relier. The CSU takes a focused approach to increase operational effectiveness. Campuses utilize a variety of methods to reduce costs and enhance quality. Process improvement methods are used at several campuses to improve performance by systematically identifying and removing waste, such as errors, delays, and rework, from business processes, allowing us to divert resources to other critical functions. Data are collected to help us make informed decisions and ensure we are allocating resources toward the most highly valued and critical activities. Additionally, leveraging between the CSU campuses, the California community colleges, and the University of California has reduced redundancies and increased effectiveness across the three segments. The results of these collaborative efforts are showcased at the California Higher Education Collaborative Conference, where the three systems gather to share best practices and identify areas where they can work together. Trustee Taylor was recently the keynote speaker at the conference hosted by UC Irvine. The CSU also focuses on strategic planning to improve operational effectiveness. For instance, procurement leaders across the 23 campuses and the Chancellor's Office created a strategic vision titled 23C to focus on forward-looking planning and collaboration. The CSU employs a variety of strategies to reduce costs, including the use of competitive bids and direct negotiations. Construction, information technology, and facilities operations and energy comprise over 60% of the CSU savings opportunities, with the remainder including other key areas such as instructional services and equipment and academic support services. In 2018, the CSU achieved over $100 million in cost savings and avoidance in these 5 main spend categories. I would like to now provide you with a few examples of initiatives in each of these categories. Construction is a significant area of expenditure, and we have developed several methods to improve the management of construction projects at the campuses, which yielded $20.1 million in cost savings and avoidance. Examples include successful sponsorship of legislation allowing campuses to centrally manage their projects on a common portal and save the money that would have otherwise been spent on print advertising, use of an owner-controlled insurance program to aggregate insurance for construction contractors under one insurer, eliminating redundant costs and reducing risk from insurance gaps. Use of a new construction delivery method that utilizes a single bid process to execute multiple projects at a single campus or across several, and campus focus on early engagement of contractors to drive down material costs and better define delivery schedules, saving storage costs and mitigating scheduling impacts. In the information technology category, the CSU has delivered $26.9 million through a number of initiatives, such as migrating many applications to the cloud while maintaining mission-critical functions in a secure offsite facility, negotiating system-wide licenses on software and hardware purchases, and through the Common Network Initiative, the CSU has standardized network equipment and related services and achieved benefits including reduced costs through greater purchasing power, lower maintenance costs, more robust operations, and faster rollout of upgrades. Facilities operations effectiveness initiatives include irrigation projects, parking ticketing systems, and operations restructuring. System-wide buying of medical supplies and lab equipment, and collaboration with the University of California and the California community colleges on the purchasing of facilities products for maintenance, repair, operations, and furniture. The CSU has a long history of implementing energy conservation and utility management projects, resulting in savings for campuses, while reducing environmental impacts by addressing issues of consumption and the use of natural resources, such as the implementation of energy efficiency initiatives like solar installation projects, boiler and chiller improvements, and LED bulb replacements, and system-wide rollout of an energy management system to analyze building energy use. Now I will hand it over to President of San Diego State University, Dr. Adela de la Torre, to provide some examples of energy initiatives. President de la Torre?
Thank you, Elvin. San Diego State University has realized energy cost savings via our participation in the CSU Direct Access Purchase Program, in which 9 other campuses and the Chancellor's Office also participate. Via this program, the CSU negotiates and buys directly from energy providers on the open market rather than from local utilities, generating an estimated $4 million annually in lower electricity costs across the 10 participating campuses and the Chancellor's Office. Due to utility regulations of the direct access market, 9 CSU campuses currently are unable to participate in this program. However, the Chancellor's Office staff and campus representatives continue to pursue expansion of this program via regulatory changes. 4 campuses are served by municipal utilities and do not have any customer choice. Additionally, SDSU has invested in clean, renewable energy technology through the installation of 1 megawatt of solar panels, which provides about 4% of our electricity throughout the year. We are currently exploring additional solar projects through the system-wide program established by the Chancellor's Office. Some of these solar panels sit atop our Conrad Prebys Aztec Student Union, which achieved LEED Double Platinum certification. It has achieved this highest green building rating, first for its design and construction, and again for its sustainable operations. The new Aztec Recreation Center expansion is also targeting LEED Double Platinum and is on track to achieve this goal. SDSU currently has a total of 9 buildings with LEED certifications. These high-performing buildings lower life cycle costs, reduce our consumption of natural resources, and improve the indoor environment for students, faculty, staff, and the greater community. I'll hand it back to Arun to speak on other initiatives. Arun?
Thank you, President de la Torre. The university has focused considerable resources to be more effective in providing proper infrastructure and delivering services to students geared towards assisting them in achieving their educational goals, saving $20.3 million. For example, we have coordinated the purchasing of electronic library resources across the system and consolidated contracts for learning management systems, lecture capture services, and other academic software. We have also taken several initiatives in the academic support services category to reduce operational costs, which saved $17 million in 2018. Through risk management activities, the CSU achieved $6.3 million in cost avoidance this year with insurance premium management, claims management, particularly in workers' compensation claims, and a strategic partnership with the UC on lab safety software. With consolidated contracts for office supplies, temporary services, and printers, the CSU reduced costs by $4.5 million. And by negotiating system-wide agreements, such as for external financial auditors and bank card services, these CSU saved $4 million. And finally, the CSU avoided $2.2 million in costs through improvement of processes and automations. For example, we use a common portal for catalog-based purchasing to ensure compliance with contracted rates for a number of goods. And as many of you are aware, the CSU joined with the UC in creating a common strategic sourcing tool called CaluSource, which facilitates our ability to leverage 33 campuses and 5 medical centers in our acquisitions, significantly improving the buying power of both segments. An overarching principle that weaves through our various procurement initiatives is sustainability. We're excited to announce that the CSU has issued a new single-use plastics policy with the goal of eliminating the use of plastic straws and bags in 2019 and eliminating the use of styrofoam and water bottles by 2023, while giving preference to reusable, compostable, or recyclable products instead. In addition, we are working with all of our stakeholders to overhaul our current buy recycled policy to broaden its scope to address sustainable procurement. We anticipate release of this updated policy within this calendar year. The CSU continues to work with our suppliers to mitigate environmental impacts. For instance, we have implemented an auto substitution program for office supplies that replaces items in specific categories such as toner and paper with recycled and/or repurposed alternatives. This change has resulted in improved sustainability as well as $350,000 in savings. Where appropriate, we have utilized criteria around sustainable practices in evaluating proposals from bidders for projects, and we will continue to seek opportunities to further this process. I would now like to hand it back to Executive Vice Chancellor Steve Relier to conclude our presentation.
Thank you, Arun. So we're looking at every opportunity to identify cost reductions while delivering a high-quality education to our students. And our efforts have been recognized by a number of external groups as well. For example, a notable ranking of educational value based on costs and other factors was recently released by Washington Monthly. The list of the best bang for the buck schools is intended to help students attain a high-quality, affordable education at the lowest cost to the institution. Out of the more than 200 institutions on the list of the top schools, 17 of our campuses are named and 10 earning a spot in the top 25. Additionally, you'll find CSU campuses in similar rankings in terms of value by Forbes, U.S. News and World Report, PayScale, Money Magazine, and CollegeNet. Our administrative and support costs per student and per degree will continue to be among the lowest in the country compared to our peer institutions. The CSU will continue to explore more opportunities for reducing cost and enhancing effectiveness. Let's see, we should be on the next slide now. There we are. We will focus on projects such as leveraging fleet and cloud services, continue to pursue multiple campus opportunities, and foster our relationships with the University of California and the California Community College System, implementing sustainable procurement initiatives such as our 23C Procurement Strategic Plan, and finally, expand the use of process redesign and performance tools to increase value and lower costs on our campuses. So as you've seen today, our initiatives to be more efficient and effective have been recognized by independent organizations demonstrating that the CSU continues to provide a very high value to its students. Our efforts have made a difference, and we will continue to look for new and innovative ways to be more effective while still recognizing the need for adequate resources to achieve our important student success goals. That concludes our presentation, and Arun and I are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Steve. From at least one trustee's perspective, this is critical to the future of our system. We are known for many things. We are known, as you mentioned, for having the biggest bang, social mobility, and the most diverse system. But we cannot take the foot off the throttle with regard to efficiency and effectiveness. And I think that's one of the things that should be paramount that we're known for. And to that end, I had a discussion with Trustee Taylor a while ago about perhaps considering the establishment of a trustee award for efficiency. And each year, each of the campuses would submit a name, and perhaps we could find a way to do special recognition. We could also include some sort of innovation award where there's a monetary award to employees who come up with ideas that save significant money. And I think we should consider doing some of those things to continue to enhance our ability. I have a number of speakers, but I also would like Steve to at some point talk about how this links with the revenue opportunities task force that's existing now, and how Aaron and the group is working on not only finding ways to have cost efficiency and cost avoidance, but also different revenue streams that can assist the campuses. But before we get to that, I'd like to call on the trustees who've indicated an interest to speak, and the first one was Trustee Sebelius.
Thank you, Chair Nyland. My question concerns construction, and therefore I thank Vice San Juan for sticking around. Maybe you have an answer to my question. When you visit our campuses, you inevitably come across buildings that look alike. It's often classroom buildings where the hallway looks totally identical to those on other campuses. The classrooms do, the bathrooms do, etc. And I assume from the looks of these buildings that they were built in the late 60s, maybe early 70s when we created many new campuses. And it seems to me they were built by a state architect or designed for many campuses in order to save costs. Now, these buildings are not very attractive from an aesthetical standpoint, and I'm not advocating that we repeat something identical, but during my short time on the board, we have now approved several science buildings, several student housings, some parking garages, science buildings in Chico, San Jose State, and SLO most recently. And I wonder whether we cannot scale up by doing something similar. Now, in this day and age of computers, it's clear to me that not one science building fits the needs of every campus. But with computer technology and modules, is there not a possibility to come up with cheaper ways to design these buildings? Every science building needs a chemistry lab. There's certain electricity for engineers. Engineers need certain facilities that are true for every campus. While science buildings might be a bit complex, I'm sure there's not such a great variation, for instance, in parking structures, maybe not even in student housing, although I understand that some student housing is built in private-public partnerships where we have to consider other people's desire, other development desires. But can't we bring our size as a CSU to bear, and maybe even, the UC also needs these buildings, parking garages, science buildings, etc., the community colleges too. Can we not scale up and do something that is more useful and more aesthetically attractive than those unified classroom buildings, that these unified administration buildings from the 1960s, but still apply the same principle of upscaling, of joining forces, of creating cost savings?
Trustee Sebelius, you'll be surprised. We just spoke about this yesterday at staff meeting. We had that conversation where there are faculty offices that the state architect did design that's at multiple campuses, a music building. And I think in the number of years in this position, only one campus has reused a design in order to reduce the cost of their next student housing project, and that was Cal State East Bay. So it is possible, and we were trying to think how to promote that, even though there are differences in programs. And our discussion was really centered in on how to get through the state fire marshal review process faster. So that has been a challenge to our campuses. And really the discussion was, if they've already reviewed that design once, can we help them if they were to be able to do some type of adaptation on an existing building? So it is a challenge based on site constraints, different programs that the campuses have, but we're happy to think about that to try and address a couple different problems, both looking at reducing the design costs, but also delivering the project faster than we're currently delivering.
Can I thank you, Vi, and Trustee Sebelius, if I could just add a couple of comments. The decision to build a science building, for example, and you pointed out science buildings are expensive because of the nature of what goes on in there, right? The air handling systems are more expensive, electrical because you've got analytical ultracentrifuges and super low freezers and just a lot of stuff that pulls power. So when we and the president of a campus makes a decision to build a science building, it is really in some ways it's almost like the last resort, the plan B or C, because they do know that it costs a lot of money and we can use that money for a lot of different things. So we could easily be, we could easily be building a lot more science buildings, but it does go through a rigorous review, both on the campus and at the system level before we pull the trigger to build a science building. Now, we're also fortunate that sometimes, and we'll use President Armstrong and San Luis Obispo as an example where a donor will step in, and the need is so great that a donor will step in and say, I'm going to come up with a big chunk of the resources necessary to do this. Where once we've made that decision to build a science building, what we do is spend a lot of time thinking about how to do it in the most efficient way. So, for example, what's changed enormously over the last decade or so is the construction delivery methods that we use. So methods in terms of, how does insurance work with a contractor? Well, we completely revamped that program so that now we actually centralize that and provide that insurance because we can save a ton of money. How the relationship between the actual architectural design and the contracting, the build, we've collapsed that into a single process, which will dramatically lower costs. At times when there may be international disagreements about trade and things like steel costs can go up, we can actually pre-buy steel and almost kind of hedge that. So we'll do a lot of different things to get the actual construction cost down as low as we possibly can. But recognize that sometimes, and I can point to some recent science buildings at San Luis Obispo and at San Jose and Dominguez Hills, these are going to be fundamentally transform those campuses because of the impact that they're going to have, the ability of students and faculty to work together, undergraduates actually involved in faculty research. I mean, I think these are very important. Now, all that being said, and I apologize for droning on a little bit long, all that being said, our bias when we do get new capital dollars is towards deferred maintenance, life safety, and seismic types of things. That usually has the first call on those capital dollars. And as we look towards the possibility of a general obligation bond in March 2020, that is going to be the key focus, is going to be things like seismic retrofits. It'll be improving the buildings that you were just describing so that they're better and more efficient buildings and the maintenance costs are low. Life safety. And then the final thing is to look at our information infrastructure because that hasn't been refreshed in quite a while.
Thank you. Trustee Taylor.
Thank you and good morning. Terrific report. Always nice to hear the great progress we're making because it really does in many ways go to the credibility of the entire institution to spend taxpayer and student tuition money wisely. Really pleased about the UC and community college collaboration with CSU. I would love to learn a little bit more about that. Arun, you touched briefly on some of the savings in insurance, and I'm curious if we've made progress in thinking through the possibility of joining a captive insurer and whether or not that makes sense for us. Or maybe that question goes to Vice Chancellor Rellier. I'm not sure.
I'm going to step
I know
in.
you've done some work on this. I'm just curious if
we actually have, Trustee Taylor, and we've been working for actually quite a while with UC to identify an opportunity to see if we can joint venture on this. Now, recently, after spending quite a long time with UC defining, we picked a particular area, actually in the workers' comp insurance area. And after spending quite a lot of time doing that analysis, what we found just kind of right off the bat was that it looks like our costs under what we thought would be a cost savings model would actually increase our costs. And it has to do with the way that UC, and it's nothing wrong with the way UC does it, but it just happens to be with the way they've structured their costs and how they would apportion those costs to CSU to be a sub-captive under their captive would actually add costs. Now, one of the interesting things is that if we had done this analysis a few years ago, we probably would have had a different conclusion because at that time, UC had the authority, as you know, to invest reserves like insurance reserves in a way that would kind of maximize the return, and CSU did not. Well, guess what? We now have that authority, and Trustee Taylor is the chair of the Investment Advisory Committee that allows us to invest those funds in a much more productive way. And that first of all, it shrinks the delta in terms of the revenue side. But right now, we're not giving up, by the way. I'm not saying we're giving up, but at least in the first blush on this first piece of that, it looks like the cost that UC would apportion to us to manage it under this joint captive would actually slightly increase our costs more than they are right now.
Great.
So we're not going to give up on this because we're always looking at ways that UC and CSU can joint venture to do things better, faster, cheaper. But on this particular one that we started off with, it doesn't look that way.
Great. Thank you for the update.
Sure.
Chair Day?
Thank you, Chair Allen. Thank you, Steve, for excellent report and all of your hard work on the staff. One item I just wanted to mention, and it's not directly, it may or may not be directly related to this committee. It's probably not, but I noticed on our educational policy agenda, we're talking about academic preparation, student financial aid, and external partnerships. And this issue, it deals with costs and cost savings, but not so much to us as an institution, but rather to the students, and that is the cost of textbooks. So I've been reading a lot about that. I know a lot of campuses are doing work on that, but a lot has come my way recently for some reason about those efforts. Especially, I know President Beck and her team at Channel Islands are doing a lot of work on this as well. One statistic I remember is that the cost of textbooks since the 70s has gone up like over 1,000%. And if you ran those numbers for a gallon of milk, it'd be like $17 for a gallon of milk today. It's insane and it's mind-boggling. And those are enormous, staggering costs for our students to have to bear. So while this is an item that doesn't really address the cost to our system, would love to just raise it and highlight it and thank the campuses who are doing good work on this, but commend them to do more work and work with you in your shop with Lauren and his team and others across the silos to see if we can highlight this even more and really make some progress on some of the open educational resources efforts that are out there, because I think it's very, very critical and there's a lot of low-hanging fruit there for our students.
Just want to mention that we do look forward to making such a presentation, particularly around the affordable learning solutions that we've got, where many of our students are taking advantage of either low cost or no cost textbook and other learning materials within the classroom. So we look forward to providing that information to you and the rest of the board members.
Yes, Chair Eisen?
Thank you. A couple of comments. You won't be surprised that I want to comment and commend everyone for the work on our single-use plastics policy. Not a minute too soon. I do follow a bunch of Instagram accounts, including Cal Maritime's Dining Hall Instagram account, which is excellent, Monterey Bay, and others. So I keep track of what we are doing in terms of single-use plastics. If you want to have a really profound demonstration of what single-use plastics are doing to our planet, I commend you to an Instagram account called #4Ocean. We will, in not too long, have more plastic than fish in the oceans. So the more we can do, the better. I know Jack is smiling because I've caught him with a plastic water bottle on occasion. I also wanted to commend you on the work you're doing in helping our vendors see the benefit of becoming sustainable and following our lead. Oftentimes I see photographs of meetings, or I go to meetings and there are plastic water bottles around, and I'm told that this is the vendor. And this is not our problem, it's the vendor's problem. Well, we have an obligation to at least attempt to get our vendors and to use our economic cloud to do that. And I'm glad to hear in this report that we're doing just that. So thank everyone for those efforts.
Thank you. As we close, I would also like to commend the CSU system with regard to the community choice aggregation efforts. Just 3 or 4 years ago, community choice aggregation was an innovative approach to buy energy directly off the grid. And at that time, there were 2 small municipalities and 1 water district, which were the only players in that pool. I'm so pleased to note that we are probably the very largest institution accessing the community choice aggregation and saving tons of money. And so kudos to you and to the presidents. Thank you.
I'll just add that this, you put your, trustee Allen, you put your finger on something that's very important, just the pure dollars of us being able to get those other 9 campuses on a direct access open market. We're really looking at probably, I'm guessing, somewhere in the neighborhood of over say a 5-year span, maybe another $35 million of savings to the system. So this is critical. We're very happy to partner with Vice Chancellor Ashley's team to get regulations changed so that we can do that. The 10 campuses that are part of that program are really enjoying the great benefits of getting that cost structure down. In the end, it goes back right into hiring faculty, course sections, getting students to their degree faster. That's the bottom line. One thing I also want to touch on Trustee Eisen's comments about the sustainability. I have to acknowledge the president's role in weaving, they all have designated leadership in sustainability coordinators on their campus. But what the presidents of CSU have done a particularly good job is intertwining the academic programs and the staff and the faculty work and their research with the day-to-day maintenance and operation and construction of buildings on the campus. So I think that has given CSU campuses a real leg up in being leaders in the area of sustainability.
I think Trustee Taylor would like to have another comment.
Just a clarifying question. Direct access has been around for now, 20 years? Why is it 10 campuses can't participate?
It's actually 9 that can't participate, and maybe Vi, the technical regulation that prohibits them. We have basically kind of breaks down this way. We have 10 that can, and so we're on the market negotiating, free of any investor-owned utility. We have 9 that, if the regulation was changed to allow us to do that, could do it. And then we have 4 that are captive to their local municipal utilities. So Vi, do you want to drill down on that?
Right. Up until, I would say, last year, there was legislation that prohibited additional clients going on to direct access. So now I believe a Hertzberg bill passed that allows us to participate, but the CPUC, the Public Utilities Commission, is working on the rules on how to join and what limits they may establish on the capacity of those that join. So it's in the rulemaking process, and we're optimistic because there are a number of our campuses that had been on at one point, opted off, and would like to get back on. Yeah.
And the municipal utility campuses?
They have never been eligible. I'd have to follow up with you on why they've not been eligible, but even when it was an open market, they were not able to participate. And I don't think Aaron's here. So I'd have to follow up with you on why.
President Harrison, maybe you've got some experience in this space.
Yeah, very direct with LA DWP. In their charter, they prohibit us from doing such actions. We have been working with Senator Hertzberg and most recently with the CEO of LA DWP to perhaps find a way to get a waiver, because we want to be able to meet our CSU goals, but also beyond that, frankly. So we're working on it.
Great. Thank you.
Seeing no more requests for comment, Chairman Day, this concludes the business of the Committee on Finance.
Thank you, Chair Allen. We will adjourn now for lunch and reconvene at 1 p.m. for the Committee on Audit.